Hello and welcome to the Lagos studios of IATV. I am Adegboyega Labiron, thanking you for joining us for yet another episode of AM Cafe. It is another segment of AM Cafe where we review issues and development as reported by the Nigerian dailies. I'm not the only one in the studios. I'm being joined by my colleague, Faith.
Good morning, Adegboyega, and it's nice to have you join us in the program this morning. My name is Faith Agbetuya, and this morning we are going to be reviewing different issues as reported by different dailies in Nigeria.
I have with me the Nigerian Tribune, the Punch, and the Vanguard.
And with me is the Guardian newspaper, the Nation newspaper, the Punch newspaper, as well as the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, I'd like to get started with the Nigerian Tribune with this headline. Federal Executive Council okays $20 million loan for Lagos Transport Master Plan. That story is on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune with the following rider. To rehabilitate urban roads, create 8 bus corridors, 2 interchanges at Marina and Mile 2. Approves $227 million for rural electrification, regional power projects at Oshogbo, Ekiti to rail line construction. All of that coming from the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. And the story goes all the way to page 2. Buhari said to dissolve cabinet, direct ministers to submit performance reports April 24. That story is on page 8 also of the Nigerian Tribune. Why I want a second term Kogi governor with another rider, PDP stakeholders see ticket to Kogi East. That's on page 9 of the Nigerian Tribune. Well, no workable formula for subsidy removal yet, federal government. The federal government has said that its inability to find a formula that works for the country is the reason it had not been able to design buffers against removal of petroleum subsidy. Stating this on Wednesday at the Federal Executive Council meeting, Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed said Nigeria is a unique country as what works for others may not be workable within its context. No workable formula for subsidy removal yet. That story is on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, and it goes all the way to page 2. Rep speakership, APC, North Central rejects zoning. GA declares interest. Bago rejects zoning. Senate passes police reform bill, fixes 5-year tenure for Inspector General of Police with the following rider. Subjects appointment to its approval. Sets up Nigerian Police Council to consist of President, Governors, Inspector General of Police, Police Service Commission boss, 2-year jail term or 5 million naira for police impersonator, and all draconian laws in 1943 Police Act removed. That story continues on page 2. Senate passes police reform bill, fixes 5-year tenure for Inspector General of Police.
And on the Guardian newspaper, Senate begins move to override Buhari on budget timeline bill. And the riders subjects IGP's appointment to confirmation. Again, passes PIGB others. And the second rider okays $60 per barrel benchmark, 305 naira US dollars exchange rate for 2019. Senate yesterday began the process of overriding President Muhammadu Buhari's vote on the budget timeline bill. It arrived at the decision after adopting the report of a technical committee it set up to study bills rejected by the president. The bill seeks to amend 1999 Constitution by making it mandatory for the president and state government to lay budget estimates before Parliament 3 months to the end of a fiscal year. That story is continued on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Ministers to hand over reports before April 24. The riders, FEC approves $247.3 million foreign loan for electrification projects. And another rider says no workable policy to remove fuel subsidy. President Muhammadu Buhari has asked for comprehensive status reports on policies, programs and projects from cabinet members on their ministries, departments and agencies as his first-term tenure winds down. Garba Shehu, the president's senior special assistant on media and publicity, disclosed this in a statement in Abuja yesterday. That story also continues on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Olubadan mourns as Oba Olateru Olagbegi dies. The demise of the Olowo of Owo yesterday has got so many reports says that so many people in the town of Owo have been thrown into tragedy. They've been in the mourning mood since yesterday, and many people in the town describe the king as a charismatic, forward-looking king that has worked for the growth of the Owo township, and we pray the Lord will grant him an eternal rest.
Amen.
And away from that, court orders arrest of Etete Adoke, others over $2.1 billion Malabu scam. That's on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Patients relieve ordeal as TB, tuberculosis, spreads, becomes untreatable. That story is a special report on page 36 and 37 of the Guardian newspaper. And last, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, 26-year-old girl rescued from 7 years cocaine addiction. That's a Metro story on page 12 of the Guardian newspaper.
And I'll go to the Punch newspaper. Domestic debt servicing gobs 1.8 trillion naira, rises to 330 billion naira. That story is on page 25 of the Punch newspaper. EFCC says it's working with Interpol to arrest Adoke Etete with a rider as courts others ex-ministers, 5 others apprehension. $2.1 billion Malabu scam. That story continues on page 3 of the Punch newspaper. Well, NJC mates may extend Muhammad's tenure as acting Chief Justice of Nigeria. That story continues on page 3 of the Punch newspaper. Petrol will continue to sell for 145 naira, says NNPC. That story is on page 30. Page 30 of the Punch newspaper. Petrol will continue to sell for 145 naira, says NNPC. While we haven't held by-election in Darius district, INEC, you can find that story on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Federal government declares Friday, Monday, Easter holidays. You can find the details of that story on page 9 of the Punch. Well, over to you.
All right, on the Nation newspaper, I have Buhari challenges Atiku to present his credentials, and the rider, I'm better than PDP candidate, President tells Tribunal. President Muhammadu Buhari has responded to allegations of the petition by Atiku Abubakar and his party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, before the Presidential Elections Tribunal. Buhari, in a response filed on Tuesday by a team of lawyers led by Wole Olanipekun, SAN, debunked Atiku's and PDP's claim that he was not qualified to run for president. The president said he was far more qualified than Atiku and challenged him to produce his academic credentials before the tribunal. You know, this kind of many Nigerians are actually waiting to see the end to all of these things.
There is a ruling of the tribunal we're waiting for.
Yes, exactly. And many Nigerians are waiting to see if it's going to, where exactly it is going to end. And away from that, Arewa to government and killings. The Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF, rose yesterday from its National Executive Council meeting with a call on the federal government to take the battle to the criminals responsible for killings across the country. It also urged the government to take measures that will restore peace in the states. That story is continued on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. $1.2 billion Malabu oil deal. Court orders arrest of Adoke Etete, others. And the rider, ex-AGF, set to appeal. The High Court of the Federal Capital Territory in Jabi has ordered the arrest of two former ministers, Mohammed Adoke and Dozie Loya Etete. Also to be arrested are Raf Wezels and others. That story is also continued on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Olowo of Owo, Oba Olagbegi, passes on at 77. That's on page 42 of the Nation newspaper. Oni loses bill to sack Governor Fayemi, on page 42 of the Nation. Senate passes bills rejected by Buhari, and that's on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. All right, Buhari is rejecting a bill and the Senate is passing it. So that might interest you on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. Troops kill 39 Boko Haram fighters, on page 6. Why we've not released UTME results, on page 7. Many Nigerians or youths that have written the JAMB I'm sure are waiting, as well as their parents, on why JAMB hasn't released the results. So now JAMB is coming out to say, oh, this is the reason why it hasn't released the results. So you may want to check that story on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. Joshua's rival Miller fails drug test, on page 47 of the Nation newspaper. 19 suspects, 2 vessels held as Nigerian US navies joins forces, on page 39 of the Nation newspaper. And ex-president al-Bashir imprisoned. That's on page 40 of the Nation newspaper.
And now to the Vanguard newspaper. Presidential tussle. I always beat you in every election, Buhari tells Atiku. With a rider queries powers of tribunal to order fresh election. Not only do I have SSC, I rose to top of my military career. That is coming from the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. The story continues right into the middle of the pages. President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday took a swipe at the presidential candidate of PDP, Atiku Abubakar, in the recently concluded presidential election, describing him as a serial loser. I always beat you in every election, Buhari tells Atiku. Queries powers of tribunal to order fresh election. Not only do I have SSC, I rose to top of my military career. Presidential tussle. I always beat you in every election. That's coming from the front page of the Vanguard. Papa Badagry, other Lagos roads. Federal government, Lagos state government abandon motorists, commuters to misery. That's on page 38 of the Vanguard newspaper. Power, national grid system collapses 6 times in 4 months. On page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. Sets up measures to end rising cases of killings in Nigeria. Christian Association of Nigeria tells federal government. We are yet to find formula that works. Finance Minister, that's talking about subsidy removal, on page 41 of the Vanguard newspaper. $1.2 billion Malabo oil scam. Court orders arrest of Adoke, Etete, 4 others. That story you can find on page 14 of the Vanguard newspaper. And
on the inside page of the Vanguard newspaper, 8 local government areas in Kaduna facing security challenges. Peace Commission has said this, and the rider as ACF tells FG to do more to safeguard the north. And Zamfara insecurity, we don't want fire brigade solutions. Miners have said this. Kwara speakership, APC foundation members support house rules, endorse Sahid. That's on page 12 of the Vanguard, on page 13 of the Vanguard newspaper.
And finally, on this segment of AM Cafe, where we review issues and development as reported by the Nigerian dailies, I have with me the Ghanaian newspaper. AIT silent on demolition of Abuja structures. 2 days after the demolition of its structures in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, the group of companies, owners of AIT and Ray Power FM, has remained silent over FCTA's action. While The newspaper made several attempts yesterday to speak to senior officials of DAR, including its group managing director Tony Akiotu. They neither picked their calls nor responded to messages on their cell phones. And with that, we come to the end of this segment of AM Cafe. By the special grace of God, we look forward to coming on yet another edition tomorrow. I am Adegboyega Labiro, thanking you for having stayed tuned. Good morning.
Many thanks for joining us. I am Faith Agbetuya. Do join us tomorrow for another beautiful edition.